That day is about 6 minutes. I know. Just watching. Yeah, I think to me,
Okay, it was approximately 7:04 PM. September, what is it today? September 15th, 2025. I'll open up this informational meeting and I'll hand things on over to the project director, Don Stewart.
Thank you very much. I have been a resident of North Hero for 23 years. I love living here. I have been construction company for 35 years and spent a tremendous amount of time developing projects from inception all the way through construction. And I was honored when Carl and the board asked me to get involved and be involved in this. So I'm going to take you through a presentation about why North Hero needs a new fire station and town garage. There will come a time for questions, and I would ask if you would be so kind as to hold your questions until we are done. And Todd, as the moderator, will take questions and he will sort of distribute them to whoever it is who's going to be here. The other person I would introduce to you is Matt Reed, who is our architect from a company called AES Northeast. Matt is also an active fireman in South Hero, so he is a person who not only knows about the design of fire stations, but knows architecture. So Matt and I worked together for, gosh, probably 15 years. Yeah. It's been quite a while. We've known each other. And so he's our architect and he's done a wonderful job so far. So we'll start into this. So if you would, madam, if you'd start us in. So the North Hero Volunteer Fire Department, they respond to over 100 calls a year, including mutual aid to the surrounding communities, which a lot of people don't know, but we respond to calls not only in North Hero, Grand Isle, South Hero, Alburg, Alamo, Swanton, Rouse's Point, and I think even up into McCall, don't we?
Yes, we've been to Indigo back on occasion.
Right, so it's called mutual aid. So our fire department doesn't just serve us in North Hero, it serves our community. So they handle fire calls, they handle smoke alarms, they handle accidents, and they handle, which is really unique for a fire department, both water and ice rescue. They are staffed by 16 trained volunteers, 16 trained firefighters, and when we say trained firefighters, they are trained firefighters. These are not people who just show up off the street and they give them one of those fancy outfits and they run to the fire. There's weekly training, there is monthly training, there's yearly training. They have to be able to function and do all the things that a person does when you put 50 pounds of gear on them and a bunch of rebreather apparatus. They have to go into a house that's burning. So these people are physically fit, they're trained. And it's a wonderful group. They also have an auxiliary of 15 volunteers for support and fundraising. Can we go to the next one?
That is.
This one works. Well, hold on. Okay, got it. There we go. So North Hero Public Works. So we talked, that's the fire department. North Hero Public Works. They maintain all the roads in North Hero except for US Route 2. They handle the plowing, the sanding, summer lawn mowing, and facilities maintenance, and they maintain all the town properties, including five cemeteries. It is staffed by 2 full-time volunteers who are paid. So the volunteer fire department has no one is paid at the volunteer fire department. We have 2 full-time staff who work in our public works department. So let's talk about the current building conditions. Has anybody not been by the building that's up there? Okay, I just want to make sure you all know we're talking about a building that is 52 years old. It was an inexpensive metal building when it was built. It has been 52 years. It has served our community and it has taken a lot of wear and tear. The building is in bad shape. It's not that it's been abused so much as it's just been used. We have both in the fire department, in this building, on the left-hand side, the town garage, and on the right-hand side, we have the volunteer fire services. The building is undersized. It is in bad shape. It leaks. It is an energy hog. So we have a whole series of reasons why the time has come for us to replace this building. As I said, used by both the Public Works Department and the Volunteer Fire Department. It's outlived its usefulness. Metal buildings are designed to last about 30 years. This one is now at 52 years. So we've gotten our money's worth out of it. The roof is leaking. Like I said, poorly insulated. Some of the ceiling is falling down. The siding is rusting. And it is wildly insufficient in meeting current building codes or having enough size to utilize be able to even house all of our fire equipment. So timeline for the North Hero Station project. So the recognition of the need for a new building, the community identified the need for a new fire station and public works garage about 10 years ago. So this is not a Johnny come lately that we just decided a couple of months ago we needed to do this. This has been in discussion for 10 years. The initial steps in 2016, they hired an architectural company and they began design of the new fire station. In 2017, the North Station Building Replacement Committee was established. So the real point in the ground where this really started was when this committee was formed, and they began to get serious about what are we going to do to replace the station. So the vision has expanded over the years. In 2018, they were planning on building both the public works building, the fire department, and a municipal building up there on that stretch of land that we have where the current building is, and then to the west of there. Obviously, you all know we ended up moving our town offices back here where they had been through a tremendous effort of the community to get this building put back into shape so it could be used for a town office. And what better place to have a town office than in the middle of your town? So that's what we do. So in 2018, the land adjacent to the existing garage was purchased to support the expansion. So that was bought by someone who owned the land. So they had plans as far back as 2018 on that particular land. So the town office was removed from the design after its relocation to the community hall. And then progress and milestones. Starting last year, preliminary plans for the fire station, the public works garage were approved. So we had a local architect named Robert Kaneko do preliminary designs for both the fire station and for the public works building. And his original designs were similar, not identical, but similar to what you see now on these wonderful renderings. In 2025, we made significant advancements in the engineering, the design, and the planning for these buildings really got underway. And I got involved in April to help steer and get the drawings from the state they were in to a state where we could have a project we could bid for this work to be done with general contractors, which is why we ended up hiring AES as our architect. We have a civil engineer who has been working with the town for how many years, Carl, would you say?
No, I don't know. Krebs and Lansing has been with us a number of years.
So we have a company called Krebs and Lansing, a very reputable engineering firm, and they are doing the civil design. So when you have this work done, you have civil design, which is everything that's sort of horizontal. it's the building demolition, it's the excavation, it's the utilities, it's the sidewalks, it's the stormwater system, it's the foundations for the building. So we have an engineer who's designing all those things, and then the building itself, the buildings themselves have been designed by AES along with a structural engineer called Weight Engineering. So the construction, so the plan is that we have our informational meeting tonight. Tomorrow we vote in favor of this. And then we're off to the races. We plan that if everything goes according to plan, and we see no reason it cannot, we have, I'll take a quick step back. We have right now plans that are finished to what we call the 75% stage. So we know what we're going to build. We are filling in some of the details and some of the things that we haven't yet been able to finalize, but the basic designs are complete. We have had a professional estimate done for the project, and the professional estimate came in a little under the amount that we had previously budgeted. And then tomorrow we'll have our bond vote, assuming that we do pass. We will be seeking bids from general contractors. We'll be reaching out to them, and the plans will be distributed to the contractors November 1st. We will have bids back before Thanksgiving. Well, that will leave us with is the ability to look at all the bids, choose the right contractor to do the work in early December, sign a contract with them. They provide, just so you know, and so you know our money is well protected. Excuse me, the general contractor provides a performance and payment bond along with his bid. And that's the guarantee that the price he bids the job at is the price the job is done at. And it's one of the guarantees we have. If God forbid your contractor goes out of business during the project, you have a guarantee that the project will be finished by an insurance company as part of the bid. So we do our best in these situations to protect the money and the work that has been done by our community. So the idea is that we're going to bid this job in November, awarded in December. The project will begin somewhere around March 15th. Now, you may say, well, why is that? Well, what we decided to do was that the best and most efficient way to do this was to build this entire project in one building season. So what do we have on our next screen? So here's our, so we made some decisions early on. There are a couple of options when you build a project like this. We could have left the garage up, and we could have worked on the fire department for 8 or 9 months, and then we could have had that as a shared facility. But what we realized was that both our fire department and our public works department could work without the current building by using other facilities that are around. And if we don't kick them out in the winter, we can actually start the construction right around March 15th when the winter is, mostly done, and be done before Thanksgiving of the same year. So rather than extending a project over a couple of building seasons, which has a tremendous amount of cost to it, we figured out a way to condense the project into 1 year. So basically, both the buildings will be under construction at the same time. We'll start in March, middle of March, we will finish before Thanksgiving. And that's how we've structured this. The project overview. So we have 2 buildings. The fire department is approximately 7,000 square feet. So if you look at, we will show your floor plan later on, but basically what we have is we have equipment bays. Now, we can't keep all the equipment, this wonderful equipment that our volunteers raise money for and pay for. We can't keep all that inside the garages that we have now. Because we have pumper trucks, we have airboats, we have regular boats, we have trailers, we have a whole series of things that no longer fit in there. Even the trucks that we put in the garage, they don't fit, they're too big, because 52 years ago when this building was built, fire trucks were much smaller. And so we don't have any, we really can't even put them in there properly. So we're going to have a large enough area to house all of our equipment. And there's also a space next to that is similar to the area that the fire department has now, where they do their trainings and they do their discussions with people. And this will also be another public facility and also an emergency location if the town ever needs emergency services, because this building will be supported by a full generator. So we'll be able to fully protect this building. God forbid, something happens and we get separated north and south for some reason. We've got the ability to have an emergency services building up there. And so the building is being designed that way. The Public Works garage is about 3,000 square feet. It's very interesting because Public Works needs to be able to pull in the truck that they have and be able to work with the truck with the big truck with the plow on it. They can't even get it in the building right now. They can't functionally work on it because when you have the truck and the plow, it's too long. They can't even get it in there. So we're going to remedy that situation. So the project overview includes the demolition of the existing building, the grading, the utilities, the paving, the sidewalks. It also includes a small amount of EV chargers that will probably be included based on current Vermont building codes. So there's a picture of the fire station. Public Works garage, and you can see them and that's a pretty good proximity of it. By the way, one of the things that we did was we've set up the town garage, and there's actually on the right-hand side over here, there's fencing, and there's also an area in back for parking. Because one of the things that we're forced to do by the circumstances we have now is that most of the equipment that Public Works has to sit outside. So not only do you have equipment that wears much faster because it's exposed to the outside, it also doesn't look great. So now we're going to be able to take all that equipment that currently sits outside, and most of it's going to fit into the Public Works garage. If not, we're going to be able to put it behind or on the side. So now we're going to have a really lovely site that won't be an eyesore. And it is an eyesore, to be honest. And the building's run down, a lot of equipment stored outside. There's only so much organization you can do when you're kind of things around. That's part of the idea in remedying this and building this and trying to think through all the realities of what we're going to do. That's so the estimated total cost, and when I say total cost, that includes everything related to the project. You have what we call soft costs. Soft costs are the things that your architects and your engineers and your oversight of the project, like me, and there'll be other people involved in the oversight of the project during the construction. Those are soft costs. It includes the fact that we need electrical upgrades. It includes the building permits that we have to require from the state. These are all the soft costs that go into a project. So design, engineering, management, permits, electrical upgrades, and then what we call in the construction world, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Both the fire department and the Public Works will have, we'll make sure they have nice desks. I mean, we were laughing about this, but we're not gonna buy a $25 desk at a garage sale and put it in our Public Works department. We need to give these men and some women who work for us, we need to give them the sense that our community is 100% behind them in everything that they do. This is our chance to demonstrate that. So the construction, our current construction budget is $4.327 million. Our actual estimate came in closer to $4 million, but we're asking for construction bids, and they're not going to be bid for another several months. I don't know what the construction environment is going to be like in 6 months, or when these people think about it, what they're going to think about. How am I going to cover for the fact that I'm not going to build this for another 4 or 5 months? So we've left this in there, but we expect the construction costs to come in closer to $4 million than what we had in our current budget. And the contingency that we have is money that we hold as the owner to deal with the unexpected. Those things come up in construction projects, but this includes the entire project, soup to nuts, about $5.1 million, $476,000 in soft costs, construction about 4.3, and we carry a contingency to make sure that we don't have to go back to you as voters and say, hey, we need more money. We're not going to do that. So here's a little further breakdown. So the pre-construction costs architecture management permits, $227,000. There's the construction costs broken down between the fire station, the public works garage, and the civil work. Civil work, you look at that and you go, well, how come it's gonna cost us $777,000 to do the civil work? Well, I asked myself the same question. I thought, my personal estimate was, I thought it cost about $500,000 just from years of experience. But our state has really high standards of what you do, for example, for stormwater. So you can't just build a building and say, well, I plopped my building down here and where the water runs off to, I don't care. That's not how it works in Vermont. So for example, they have had to be able to get a proper stormwater drainage system around these two buildings that drains out in an area where the water is allowed to evaporate over the course of time, or in a really heavy storm, move farther down away from the buildings. They had to, these buildings are gonna be about 2 feet higher than the current building is. They've had to raise them up to deal with the fact that that land is so flat, we had no place to put drainage. But underground utilities are expensive. If you, when we look at the drawing, or so we do have a drawing, a site drawing, don't we, in this package? Okay, we'll get to there in a second. You'll see that there's a tremendous amount of pavement. Right now, we have no pavement up at the Public Works building. This is gonna be set up and be paved both in front of the Public Works building and in front of the fire department, plus there's a parking lot. Purpose being is we want to make this as long-term durable as possible, as functional as possible, and as maintenance-free as possible. So that's why we're paving as many of these areas as we are. So this is, we have this up here. So you can see, so what you're looking at here, if you look at the building on the right, the dark rectangle with a smaller rectangle next to it, thanks. This area here, that is roughly where the existing Public Works building is. Roughly right about there. Our current building, you can maybe see it actually sticks out a little further back. So the building moves back a little. That's the footprint of the town garage. Next to it, there is an exterior shed that we originally had just as an overhang, but we realized we could give our Public Works folks a little more storage at almost no cost by enclosing this area. Then and you can see there's a substantial amount of pavement in front of that. And part of that is because, Matt, if you point to the fueling area, there's a fueling area right there. So we fuel all of the Public Works vehicles and all of the fire department vehicles at that fueling station. So these are really big vehicles, and you have to be able to turn them around and move them in such a way. So you needed enough pavement to be able to turn those vehicles around and get them to be able to fuel there. So if you look on the other side, you see the proposed, the larger square, that is the equipment bay with 4 doors on it. And then to the right-hand side, we have that's the public meeting space. You can see again, there's a parking lot, which allows for the volunteers to all be there at the same time when they're called in. So there are sometimes, if you get all your volunteers there and you get the folks from auxiliary there, how many cars show up there?
When we got 16 spaces.
Yeah.
Probably fill up pretty quick.
So we'll fill that up. So when we have a real fire, when our auxiliary turns out to support the volunteer firemen, they come and they make food and they support them from this location, and it gives the fire department a place to come back to. So we have a parking lot, and we need to be able to turn these large vehicles, pull them in off the road, and then back them in. So that's why the parking lot, that's why the parking lot is fairly large. And off to the right, you'll see where there's dotted lines. That's our storm drainage area. You see, it actually goes all the way around the building. And that's the requirement of our state, how they require us to deal with stormwater. And what you don't see here are the utilities. There's underground, we're going to have a new generator. There's a septic system that is partially completed that we're going to attach to, but it's a long way away, so you end up having to have a septic pump. These are all things that are part of the civil work, which goes into one of the reasons why these things are so expensive. The civil work is. So I think that explains pretty much everything that is there. Okay, next. And do we have another slide beyond that? Do we have the floor plan, for example? Let's put the floor plan of the fire department up. Okay, so Matt, why don't you real quick just tell people what's here?
So the big square, as I said before, as an apparatus bay, that's for all their vehicles, the boats, the airboat. So this year comes the pickup truck, the regular boat, there's a new engine that, you guys just took delivery on. The airboat here, and then there is, spare bay here for expansion, whether that be if, right now, if your rescue ever wanted to park an ambulance there, you guys get a additional piece of fire apparatus, if you want to park a tanker up here instead of down here at the Omen station, it allows that flexibility. And the apparatus bays are purposely built extra deep, to provide space for training behind here, because in the wintertime, to be able to train, you need to have a space, and the trucks that have water on them can't really stay outside. And so we've designed, extra deep bays to allow for training space here. There's a few support spaces along the back here. This is the laundry to keep here clean, the mechanical room, and the breathing air pieces of it. And then over here is the kind of training room space, so large meeting room space here, a single office, room to have the radio equipment and a little bit of storage, kitchen, and then bathroom for showers, to be able to.
Great. So, the thing you may not know is that when the firemen and women come back, they have to go, they need to decontaminate. The things that happen in a fire are, missing carcinogen, so their equipment has to be cleaned, they have to get clean, and that's why they have decontamination showers. Can we go back to the slide that, thank you, sir, I think that's good, can we go back to the slide about cost savings? Right, so. When we first started looking at this job, we came up with an estimate, as a matter of fact, Matt's company came up with this of about $6.5 million. Right, just the construction part, not the design, just the construction. And I looked at that and I thought, I'm not paying that, so this. You weren't gonna pay for it, so I said, I think that's the way to do this, right, we got to figure something out. So we started working on some things. Originally there was a salt shed that we were, a salt storage facility. Most towns in this area have salt storage facilities. They just built one in South Europe, they spent about $500,000. So there was a budget in there for a salt storage facility for $500,000. Well, through our relationship with Vermont AOT, we've been able, the Public Works has been able to make an agreement where we have and will continue to store our salt and sand at the AOT facility down the road here. They're allowing us to do that. We don't have to spend that money to build a salt shed. So we save right off the bat about $500,000. We just said that's how we're gonna save some money. Then we determined how we could simultaneously construct both the buildings. And the savings of that was between $200,000 and $400,000. Now, I'm not gonna go into a long explanation about this, but you can imagine, if a project if you build one building and it takes you 8 months to build it, and the second building takes you 5 months to build it, you've spent 13 months. If you can build them both at the same time and do it in 9 months, you skip the winter. You spent all your cost, the general contractor looks at that and says, I can build that in that time. He is able to capture all of the construction in one building period. And he doesn't have to work through the winter. Winter construction is not only inefficient, it's extremely expensive. So we eliminated. We figured out a way to do the project in one shorter period. Originally, there was a second floor on the fire station. The reason for that was there is the entire firefighting world is moving towards having full-time fire department people, even in really rural areas like ours, which means you have to be able to house them. They have to be able to stay there overnight. When you go to a 24-hour system. So we looked at this and said, okay, we know this is coming, but it's not here yet. So why don't we say we'll eliminate this and we'll look forward, if we do have to ever do this, we will have to come back to the voters to build an addition on the building. We won't be able to go up, but we will be able to go out. The other thing we did, and this was really the work of Matt, sort of his genius, is we figured out a way to shrink the building just enough to get it under the size that we needed to put a sprinkler system in. Just enough, just a few feet under the state requirement for sprinkler system. Now, the problem with the sprinkler system in North Hero is we don't have enough water. So, which means you not only have to be able to have a sprinkler system, you have to have a specialized sprinkler tank to hold 10,000 gallons of water. You have to have a sprinkler pump to pump this because you don't have enough water or water pressure. So we just got invented and said, Will, how are we going to save some more money? So we were able to do our fire department without needing a sprinkler system. Public Works doesn't have sprinkler units. One of the things that we looked at was how do we optimize the mechanical electrical design for these buildings? They're not complicated, but they have to be designed to meet current building code. So rather than having the architect hire a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, and having to pay them to do full design, we went a different route. We decided what we would do is we would do what's called the design build approach. So within the contract, there is some work that will be some work that has to be designed by a plumbing contractor, and some work that has to be designed by an electrical contractor. But this is a very common way of doing things. And in buildings that are fairly simple, it is often done. So we pared about $100,000 off of our initial costs for the design of the building by going with design, build, electrical, and mechanical. And the other thing we did was, and this was at my suggestion, there are different ways to buy a construction project. One of the common ways is people hire what's called a construction manager. But the thing about a construction manager, and having been a construction manager, I know this, the owner never really knows what is the market value of the work that I have. A lot of times they'll use construction management when the drawings are incomplete and they need a contractor to help on the estimating and the design and helping figure out what the costs are ahead of time. Well, we had a much simpler and less expensive mechanism doing that, me, because I've been doing this for 35 years. So I function like a construction manager by helping us figure out how to reduce the costs and also how to get a proper estimate done. So we knew that what we have now, the design we have now, we're going to be able to build it and get it done within our budget. And so we're using a competitive bid strategy instead with comprehensive drawings and specifications, and contractor selection is slated for December of this year. So next one. Thank you, sir. You have to catch me. So project fund. We don't really have access to state or federal funding at this time. We looked, we just don't have, there isn't much out there. And we knew people would say, well, why don't we go try to find some more? Well, the environment for getting money for this kind of thing is really unpredictable right now with the current situation we have in the federal government. We just don't know. So we don't feel like waiting and getting some money later with a lot of strings attached makes as much sense as building this now. The building will only be more expensive to build in a year or 2 years or 3 years. So we determined that this is the right time to build, and that even though we don't have funding or a lot of funding, it's still the right time to build. So we have the town has about $900,000 reserved from a couple of different places that the voters approved to use for the Public Works garage. That money covers most of the cost of the Public Works garage. The Raise the Ladder campaign, which I know a lot of you have seen or participated in, we've so far raised about $26,000 towards the cost of the fire station. And the reason why a lot of you are here tonight, we have a proposed $4.5 million municipal bond issued by the Vermont Bond Bank. And eliminate that section that says with a 20-year payback. Though we have publicly said and produced information based on a 20-year payback, that decision has not been made yet. won't be made until we've done some further, the select board has been able to do some further investigation. They have some more thinking to do about it. So next page. Project tax impact of a $4.5 million bond. Again, this is based on 20 years. So obviously, if we go to a 10-year bond, we decide we want to pay this off quickly, these rates will go up. If we go to a 30-year bond, these tax rates will go down. But example, if you have $200,000 of assessed property value, it will be $260 a year. For $400,000, it would be $520 a year. If your assessed property value is $800,000, you pay about another $1,040 a year. That's for a 20-year bond. Now that's across the board. It's everybody, regardless of whether you live here and you vote here, if you have property here, you're on the grand list, this is how it will impact. So we're here on the 15th with our public information meeting, and we'll get the vote tomorrow from 7 to 7. So I want to talk for just a second, if I could, about the tax increase. Our neighboring communities pay for their fire service at rates that are very different than what we do. Alberg spends in their budget every year, Alberg has about $180,000 for the operations of the fire department. Grand Isle has, a little over $300,000 a year so that's part of their taxes that they pay every year. South Hero, we were over 350.
It's 180 for the fire department operations and the building bond, as we're paying off our building right now is another 150.
Right.
On that.
So South Hero is over $350,000. That's in their taxes that the select board there passes every year. So neighbors to the north, 180,000. Neighbors to the south, over 300. Neighbors further south, over $350,000 a year. North Hero, $30,000 a year goes from that you are right now being taxed with $30,000 a year. That's all the money that North Hero pays to the fire department. It's about another $25,000 a year in expenses that they cover for insurance, fuel, a few other things, comes out to about $55,000 a year. North Hero pays less than 1/3 what Alberg does, and less than 20% what Grand Isle and South Hero does. You know how long we've been doing that for? Basically 75 years. Because we've had a 75-year tax abatement. Because not only do our firefighters who risk their lives for you and for other people, not only do they do that, they raise their own operating funds. And they have ever since Gus owned and built this building next door. They raise the funds themselves. It is almost unheard of. It's extraordinary. These men and women who are not only our neighbors, they're our firefighters, they're our fundraisers. That's how we pay for this. And the time has come for those of us who live here, who vote here, who have a say in how money is spent in our community. The time has come for us to step up and show our support. We don't want our fire department or our public works to be any more in a substandard building. We want them to have proper facilities where they can store and maintain and use for the longest period of time all this equipment. Oh, I didn't actually say that. What you may not know is that all this equipment that you see that is parked out here, you don't pay taxes for that. That's money raised by our volunteers. All the equipment is paid for by our volunteer fundraising. It's unheard of. I mean, we just talked about it. South Hero, our neighbors to the south, pay substantial amounts of money. We do not. We pay a minuscule amount. For all practical purposes, we've had a 75-year tax abatement. It's time for us to step up. It's time for us to say, okay, we know this is important, and we've had a very favorable situation, but it's been because of our volunteers, not because of us saying we don't want to pay the taxes, but because of our volunteers raising those taxes. So I fully believe that the time has come for us to step up and to support our fire department and our public works departments by voting for the bond. And I realize it's gonna raise taxes. I'm fully aware of that. But our taxes are going towards we've done everything we can to make the project cost as little as possible. We've done what we can to try to make the project go as quickly as possible and to be done as efficiently as possible. So we've tried to cover all the bases so that the money that we spend, being good Vermonters and well, tightwads, whatever, tight with money, we're spending the least amount of money to get the most for our product. But more than anything else, we need to show these brave men and women who are volunteers that we support them. We want them to be able to do this and that this will go on for the next 75 years. That's it.
All right, we'll take any questions you may have. Yes, sir. What are the estimated yearly operating costs for maintaining and what is it, the building? Carl, probably.
I don't know if we've, yeah, go ahead, Don.
I can't answer that exactly. I think right now the select board is actually working on this as a group,
Yeah,
looking at these things. A couple of things will happen. Our insurance will go up because we're going to have 10,000 square feet of buildings instead of 3,000. So I don't know the amount, but we're building two enormously energy efficient buildings to replace one extremely energy inefficient building. So though our utility costs overall may go up, they shouldn't go up all that much. So that's all the information that I can add.
Let me see if Lisa can help with that.
It budgeted about $26,000 for operating expenses for the new building. Based on what South Hero pays for their budget. So that's in the budget this year, not knowing when the building's going to be finished. That's a guess, and we went by what is South Hero current. Yeah. So it's about 26,000 for the additional new building. We're already paying electric and all that stuff in the garage, so that'll just carry over.
Other questions? No.
You talk a little bit more about the bond term and effects on the taxes that we're voting on tomorrow.
on the bond term there, select board had a consensus at the time with people that were in favor of a 10-year note, others were in favor of a 30-year note. We came to basically an agreement there, and we said, well, let's base it on a 20-year note. Okay, if you notice there in the warning does not have a term on it. Okay, it just says up to 4.5 million. This is something there that the select board will definitely take under consideration again. Lisa has there are the numbers right there. And you can see how that affects it. Now, these rates could very well change a little bit. I don't know how much they're gonna change. So you can take a look there, Marilyn, on $400,000 of assessment there. I'm just trying to read this here myself here. Estimated increase.
Consist of that.
All right, go ahead.
So there are essentially three options, a 10, a 20, or a 30-year. If we opt with a 10-year, we get the most favorable interest rate at 3.53%. And we pay the least amount of interest over the life of the loan. But it has the most dramatic effect on the annual tax increase. Inversely, with the 30-year, you're paying a higher interest rate, you're paying the most possible interest over the life of the loan. But it has the most modest impact on from an annual tax perspective. I think there was tension, or not tension, but there was a good discussion on the board level about whether or not the most important objective is to save tax dollars on a long-term basis and avoid the application of interest, or to reduce the most kind of meaningful impact from a financial perspective on taxpayers by extending the length of the loan and protecting annual budgets, because in our community, we have I think Carl and I were discussing a median age of around 60. And when you are in that 60-year range, you're perhaps approaching retirement. Many folks are already retired, and many folks in our community are already living on a fixed income. And we don't want the construction of this project to represent a burden that is too significant for folks who are already struggling with year-over-year tax increases from the state of Vermont. But we believe this project is extremely important for our community. It's money invested in our community, it's tax dollars that we raise that stay here. And so because of that, we thought perhaps a happy medium and looking at that 20-year loan payment term would be palatable in terms of annual tax increase, while also achieving the goal of these necessary improvements. But again, we're reserving the final decision on that until we see what the bond rates actually are. At the time, we have to consider taking this up, presuming that the bond vote passes. And we'll perform the same analysis then and hopefully make a decision that represents a positive outcome for all.
Thank you, Gary.
Does that answer your question? Carolyn?
It did. It tells me that you reserve the right to raise our taxes by this amount or almost twice that amount. Depending on the bond rate.
The years, 10, 20, or 30. And I, if I can say this. We settled on the 20 for
Okay.
discussion purposes.
But you may decide to go to the 10.
No,
No,
no.
that would be
That
off,
was my
that's off,
Yeah.
well, that's off the
Yeah.
table, the 10 years off the table.
And if you're looking at higher values, like we had one that was 800,000, it's gonna be double. Pretty much double what you see here for 400.
Right.
So the question becomes 30 or 20.
Okay, because that wasn't clear
Mhm.
before. It sounded like you reserved the right to go to the 10. Will jump up taxes considerably. Thank you.
As a group, the main reason why we came to 20 is if, we didn't want to do 10 because of the burden, but if you look at each year you add, you're adding $1 million more in interest.
Right.
So going out 30 years, you're adding $2 million more.
Changed that much, but going down to 10.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Is there any urge in the vote that states our taxes will go down? Based on what we're paying now on this at the end of the 10-year period, the 20-year, 30-year bond period?
One of the things that we're looking at is level principal. And Lisa can get into the nuts and bolts of this, but if you're doing a level principal, the principal that you're paying every half year is going to remain the same, or every year, it's gonna remain the same. So the interest that you're paying on it reduces, so your bill reduces. We could also have gone with a level payment where the principal fluctuates, just like a mortgage. You end up paying more in interest that way, but your payment is the same.
Will that payment that you're calling the same disappear at the end of the 10, 20, or 30-year period?
Well, let's take the 10 out of there, so it'd be the 20 or the 30, yeah. Then the debt is retired.
We should see a reduction in our taxes.
If we're all around, yeah,
In theory, yes. However, we all know operating expense, everything goes up over the years. So will you get a rebate back? Yeah, we're not paying on that bill anymore. Why would we collect extra money for something we're not paying?
Because your other costs are going.
That would be the only reason why, but that doesn't have anything to do with this bond. Right? That has to do with operating expense.
Well, if your costs go up later, then that needs to be explained as to why we're not getting the tax reduction.
I'm only 53, but my taxes have never gone down anywhere I've lived in this country or around the world, so I would love for that to happen.
Other questions? Yes.
Douglas Kemmer from Cary Bay Lane. I have some comments and maybe a different perspective. Thank you for letting me speak and thank you for your service. I know a lot of hard work is going into this project and I'm here to support the fire department as well as the public works. I'm a firm believer that a property owner should be paying for the services that he receives. For example, electric, propane, snow plowing, fire department, county, sheriff and court system. I'm here to support the project. Regarding the 20 or 30-year bond, I'm probably not gonna be here in 30 years, so I'm happy to have someone else pay for it. My property. And someone's gonna keep using it, so they may as well pay for it. And I'd be happy to pay as little as possible right now. What you should know is that I'm a resident of Pennsylvania. And I have a summer camp in North Huron. So my property taxes went up 30% over the last 2 years. It wasn't because of the municipal taxes. It was because of the education taxes. And frankly, I don't use those. I use the municipal revenues, but I get no use out of the education taxes. Furthermore, because I don't have a homestead, I get paid the full 100% of the education taxes at a higher rate than residents do, and I don't get to vote on the budget. I think Vermont is one of the few states where their education bill is paid through property taxes. And frankly, a lot of it's paid for out-of-state property owners who don't get any benefit out of it at all. So I'm relatively upset about that, and perhaps that's the area you should work on. Because I think they've got plenty of support from the community for services provided very efficiently, very frugally. And I'm all for supporting this project. But frankly, another 10% on my property taxes, it doesn't matter how much money I make, I'm paying the full bill on something that I can't vote on.
Thank you, Doug.
Other questions, comments? Last call. All right.
I also support this project. I thank all the people who put in all the hard work, and I know it must be many, many hours. New to the town, so it's a curiosity question. I feel like this is a catch-22, where you're not quite sure what the budget on this is going to be. Both for the development and construction, but also afterwards, what the running costs and the possible maintenance costs of the buildings are going to be. So again, as a curiosity, why are we voting on this before we have the bids to give us a more definite feel for what these numbers are going to be?
Don, would you like to answer that one?
I'll answer it the best I can. Sequentially, we didn't feel like we wanted to ask. We didn't want to ask you as the voters we didn't want to go forward with the cost of the design and the bidding and all those things, and then afterwards find out that our constituents didn't really want to pay for the project. So I think we did this in a manner that is consistent with how other communities have determined the bond first. And it determines the best of their ability, the cost of the project. Voted to agree to the bond and then gone out for bids. If we don't, and I wanna make sure I say this right, that if we don't need the $4.5 million. We're not going to take that. We don't have to take all of it. We only need to take the amount that we need. Now, the good news is we already have, if you think about it, if we have $900,000 already set aside and we've got $4.5 million, that brings us to a total amount of money that we could use for the project of $5.4 million. But we already anticipate using less than that. And hopefully our bids will come back and we'll have a substantially lower total cost of the project. Every dollar that comes off of the total cost of the project is a bond dollar we don't need to borrow or need to tax for. So that's the hope, is that our actual amount of the bond will come in at less than $4.5 million. We strongly anticipate that.
I can also add on a little bit. Matt Reed with AES Northeast, and my firm has done a lot of municipal projects over the last 50 years. And the process that you guys have chosen to go through is very similar to a lot of other firms, and contractors, to get that competitive bid, to get everybody interested, want to know that the project's funded. They don't want to spend their time reaching out to subcontractors and getting estimates and putting all that together for a project not to go anywhere. And so the contractors that are bidding on it want to know that the project's funded. They want to know that the town has approved that money. And it's very common to go to an estimator. The estimators that you go to, generally have a very tight, accuracy, where they might be off by, 3 or 5 or, percent, but they carry an estimating contingency to cover that, so that when the project does go out to bid, it's generally really close to what the estimate says. And so, I know, say that we don't know the exact dollars of what the building's gonna be, but it's gonna be really close to what they put together here. So, but I think it's, I think it's just that this is a very typical way to deliver a project, where to get competitive bidders, they need to know that the funding's there, for them to really be interested in it, so.
Yes, sir. I know I'm sounding a little bit negative, but based on your chart, if that's me, you're asking me to take a vote on having my taxes increase from 447.60, 766.26. Is that correct?
No, this
is No.
10-year bond.
Oh, yeah, let me clarify that. You don't have in writing one of these 30-year, 20-year, 10-year bonds. You don't have it in writing. One of those is definite.
What we're asking the voters for is to authorize the town to seek a municipal bond up to $4.5 million so that we can construct this project. At the time, the financial analysis was put together to estimate the impacts on tax rolls. The bond rates that were available were 4.57%, 4.18%, and 3.53%. If this bond measure is approved by the voters, when we go to the bond bank, the rates might be lower. The feds are considering rate cuts now. We might have more favorable rates, so that the impact would be in fact lower in terms of the annual impact on an individual taxpayer basis. What we're hopeful of is that this illustration will help people feel confident that the necessary work is an investment that is worth making with their tax dollars, right? Don very eloquently explained how we have been paying virtually nothing emergency services here from the fire department. And if we're looking at a, let's call it a 20-year term of paying more tax than we are now to create a modern, energy efficient building that allows both our public works unit and our fire and rescue units to operate more efficiently and effectively here. The question we have to ask is that, you know, is it worth $447.60 a year for us to have that product based on the value of our property? I think the other thing that is important for all of us to keep in mind too is that you know, these services, although they are expensive, are critical. You know, as a resident here, we had to rely on one of our emergency services providers. My family did about 6 weeks ago. And I felt very lucky to know all of the people who walked into my home and to trust them. And because I see them in this community. And they helped my family at a point where we needed it. And so for that reason, I think it's really important that we consider that they need our support as well. We rely on them. They need to be able to rely on us. And so when I look at this, although any extra tax dollar is mostly an unwelcome thing, I think this is one that I feel differently about.
So basically, this is the best guess estimate, not on the total cost, but of the interest rate that you're going to see and the time period.
So this is a precise estimate based on a total bond value of using the maximum 4.5 million. When applying it to the rates that were available at that
What
time.
I'm saying is, that you don't have a guarantee on the rates yet.
No, it's just like going to any bank to borrow money. The rates will change periodically, and we're hopeful that because rates appear to be going down, that we'll see more favorable
If I
rates.
go to buy a house, it's at a certain rate, that's guaranteed.
Not, I mean, it can be if you lock your rate in,
Yeah.
but you can also allow your rates to float if you think the market is gonna show a more favorable rate at the time of closing. So it's a strategic decision. And I think that's why the select board has decided that it makes sense to wait and see what those 20 and 30-year rates look like, instead of boxing ourselves in that.
Anything else? Did I clarify? What you're doing with the vote tomorrow is simply authorizing the select board to be able to get a bond or a mortgage forget the amount, 500.
4.5.
4.5 million.
So the select board is still the group that's going to determine when to get that bond issued, how much it's gonna cost them, and how much they're gonna raise taxes as a result of that, whether it's a 20 or 30 or 50-year bond.
Well, Lisa can actually answer this.
The thing the vote does tomorrow is authorizes the select board to have the ability to go get a $4.5 million bond.
Correct.
It doesn't give them any further ability to raise your taxes or anything else. You can still come in here and complain to them for what you think is the right thing to
I
do.
agree with you 100%. When you present the chart as part of the presentation to sell this to the public, I think you're under an obligation to say this is an estimate, that those rates are not.
Yeah, Jim, let's just, Lisa can clarify this, how the bond bank works. Okay, I mean, at this point in time there, the bond bank, I believe, is closed, right?
This year. We would put to apply, but maybe not, maybe we can get a construction loan, which is what Matt is talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And then get a construction loan for just what we need for construction and then get the bond to, we would just be a temporary loan, and then actually do the bond when we know the actual cost of bond.
Does it back, you need to know by December 15th, so that we get in and
We
March.
apply, the application process happens in December, they actually will tell us the rates in February, and then we be funded in March. That's how the bond process works, and then it happens in the winter, and it happens in the summer. There's two pulls, 2 times you can get that a year.
So to meet that construction period with a bond,
We
it
decide-
has to be decided by December 15th. The amount, the interest rates.
So it'll be February before we know what those rates are gonna be. Okay.
Anything else?
Can I just ask a bond, just since we're on this, how, do you know how the rates are determined by the bond bank? Are they tied to a prime, a float, is it 2 points over something, that kind of thing?
I'm not sure,
Okay,
To whatever the market will bear.
yeah,
well, suppose,
they are expecting them to go down
sure.
with what's going on, what the Fed is expected to do.
I guess my question was, if they drop it a quarter point, which is pretty likely on the 17th, would you see a quarter point drop in these rates? That's the question.
We can guarantee that.
Thank you.
They're not directly linked to that.
Anything else? There's nothing else? I thank everyone for coming. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you all.
Good.
Yep.